Hello and welcome to The Loudspeaker, your definitive guide on how to scale your startup.
This first tip for every fintech startup is
what are the media and press saying about us? How are we being perceived by these people?
PR stunts are any activities that allow you to engage with the audience.
I don't agree with the fact that all publicity is good publicity.
Here is where we talk to communications professionals from all around the world to let you know what are the best practices and cool ideas that you can implement for your startups. Well, let's kick off. What does Riddle do and what is your role at the company, Mike?
Hey, Sam. So I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Riddle. And Riddle is a quiz marketing and lead generation platform. We've been around since, my goodness, 2014, which seems like both an eternity, but also it's gone by in a blink. So it's probably a good sign. But my role at the company, we're a small, lean team. And so everyone gets to wear lots of hats. So as CMO, I obviously run marketing, PR, biz dev. But our team also, we have a very customer focused and customer support focused ethos. So myself, my founder, Boris, the entire team all race each other to respond to customer support. So you'll see me on support quite often. People think I'm often they think I'm a bot because I'm so fast to answer questions. Like, no. So when I actually meet people in person, they're like, oh, Mike, you're real. I'm like, yes, yeah.
I'm wondering what you could throw in there just to make them realize you're human. I don't know,
like a Turing test.
Yeah, something like that. But to be honest, I think that chatbots are so advanced now, it's kind of hard to really beat them. That be like, one sec, let me finish my beer. Maybe type something like that.
To be fair, I mean, it's interesting when you start a company. One of my kind of life lessons is, especially as a marketing guy, you have to do something you like. And also, when you're setting up a business, we had the chance to set and establish the culture and tone for the business. So we're very informal, we're very chatty. So when people hit us up on support, we'll be very informal, very friendly. We'll throw in the odd GIF, and I will also throw in cat GIFs. And there's a reason, because Boris, our founder, is a great guy, but he hates cats. So I always tell our potential customers, like, hey, if you're on support and you have Boris, please send cat gifts. And that seems to get a pretty good reaction.
I find it funny how you mention that, because I've got certain friends and they don't like cats, and whenever I see a GIF, I'm like, oh, that's great. And then I was like, oh wait, this perfectly sums up the situation. But it won't really matter if I send it to them, because they'll just see a cat and I'll be like, but the cat, it sums up what I'm trying to say.
I know.
I get that. Going back to Riddle and PR, why did Riddle first think about PR as a solution? Was it for something specific? Did you have something which you were launching, or were you moving forward in a certain way and you wanted PR for this next step?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Sam. Actually, it's interesting. So we were in a good situation in that whenever people started to use our quiz maker, the reaction was almost universally positive. However, the challenge was, after a couple of years, we just weren't getting that many people organically finding us. So it was more of a top of funnel issue. So it wasn't a specific feature. It was more just, we need to get the word out about Riddle as a quiz maker, as a lead generation platform, how you can help out both small businesses, big publishers, and so on. And it's interesting because we weren't doing badly. The BBC use us, the NFL, lots of very big players use us, but we just weren't getting that traction in the PR space. And so that kind of got us to look at, okay, what are some of the options out there?
Yeah. And I suppose even if you're doing well, even if you're making gains, PR is the steroids to help boost those gains.
If it's done well. And what's interesting is I've talked to a lot of folks, and I'm sure, at Publicize, you guys must know this from a client perspective. People just will sometimes say, oh, I just want some PR. And you're like, well, you need to be a little more, A, clear on your objectives, and B, realistic about what is possible and what you can achieve. So in our sense, we said, okay, for us, we said, look, if we can reach out and actually get the word about Riddle, kind of small to medium publications, and start working our way up, that will have some very good ancillary effects on SEO, and hopefully we'll start getting that organic word of mouth going.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move because definitely, like, there's like most things, if you don't really have a goal, you don't really know what you're working to. So it's good that you had that goal to start off with.
Well, and you can quantify it because SEO, and I'll talk about this a bit later, but yeah, you can definitely see, wow, our rankings are, they're doing better, worse, whatever, but you can definitely monitor and measure.
Yeah, and that's one thing which I didn't realize was, well, I knew it was important, but I didn't realize it was such a strong motivational factor for so many people to get into PR, because it does seem like the return of interest of SEO results and SEO value for PR is just really incredible. And it's, yeah, a huge motivational factor for so many, it seems, when it comes to getting involved in PR.
Yeah, and you'll also see, this is another bad idea for PR. When I used to work for a mobile game company, and the CEO at the time said, "Hey, we need PR because we need to drive downloads." So that was put some pieces in, put a strategy in place to drive downloads. And PR is more of an awareness tool. It's really hard to actually, that's not really a mechanic you can use successfully. But SEO or getting awareness, getting people talking about it, that's more of a long-term play. And that's where I think PR, at least in our space, does well.
So we've kind of established there that like, SEO is an important factor for PR, or at least it's a desirable factor that comes from PR. But that aside, like, how important is PR for business success, do you think, in your opinion?
So my friends work in the product marketing space, and they'll be proud of me. So we're very much a product first company. So your product has to be on. If your product is not at least one of the top 3 in the space, just in terms of capabilities and how it's meeting your prospective customers' needs, PR can't really do that much. However, if, I'm totally biased, but Riddle, when I talk to our customers, people seem quite happy with us. But adding that PR element where people are like, okay, I've heard it's been recommended. I see these guys know what they're talking about. I'm going to explore what they offer. In that case, PR is, you mentioned it earlier, kind of like that steroids. It's kind of like that little extra dessert layer, which kind of puts you into the next realm in terms of, just kind of reach and growth.
No, that makes absolute sense. And I would be interested to know, what was the motivational factor for Riddle to use Publicize's PR service? Obviously, you mentioned you wanted those like steroids to get you off the ground and get you further off. Like, did that coincide around the same time, or did you like come into Publicize like after like going into PR yourself?
We tried to tackle it ourselves initially, and there's a lot of blogging out there about, hey, if you're a startup, you can reach out to journalists directly and build relationships and all this other stuff. And they're all very good, or they're often very good tips. But it's just when you're a small team, you just don't have time, and you need to be constantly focused to do that. So essentially, we weren't doing very well. And so we said, okay, what are our options? We don't have a big budget to spend on a big, expensive London firm that wants a big retainer. And so we just started putting the word out among our network. And I forget who, I think one of our investors might have suggested you guys. But basically, we looked at the offering. We said, okay, this is a nice hybrid model between super expensive agency in London paying for very expensive boozy lunches, and the lone freelancers working off Upwork who may or may not actually provide results. So so we gave you guys a shot, and it's worked out really well for us.
That's awesome. And I'm glad that we can be that middle ground, because to be honest, either end of that spectrum is kind of a bit disheartening. Like going for those smaller ones, which you're like, is this actually going to result in anything? Yeah, I haven't lost too much money by going on Upwork, but at the same time, like, time is money, and you want to get that return. And then at the same time, you don't want all your money taken and then kind of realize it's kind of like when you go for one of those fancy meals. You're really hungry, you get there, and it's like a really nice restaurant, and they bring you a plate, and it's just like a tiny little like fancy like presented dish, and you're like, this is not going to do the job.
I would take it one step further. It's that whole the time is money element you brought up. It's going to the restaurant, having the waiter really ask a lot of insightful, deep questions about your needs, what you're looking for. So you spend a couple hours, really diving into it. But at the end of the day, you're like, that didn't help us at all. It did not solve my core need. I'm still hungry.
Exactly. If you're interested in seeing how Publicize can grow your startup, sign up for a free PR assessment on our website. And for a limited time only, and exclusive to the Loudspeaker listeners, we're giving subscribers a month free on a 12-month Publicize contract. To find out more, visit publicize.co/LSpromo. That's publicize.co/LSpromo. I'd be interested to know as well, like, how has Riddle most benefited from PR? Obviously, this is something that you've been dabbling in for a while, or dabbling, I suppose, is unfair. You plunged into while ago.
We purposefully plunged into this.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, actually, so from the PR side of things, once we gave it a really concentrated go, and you know, that definitely started with Publicize. I think we've been working with you guys for about 2 years now, or a year and a half now. But again, with SEO as the key metric, we took, and this is with advice from you guys, but basically, hey, slow and steady incremental growth is the goal, and you can see it. So if you look at our, kind of the key search terms for our industry, which for us is Quizmaker, that gets probably about 80% of all searches for our technology are Quizmaker. We started with you, we got an SEO audit and said, great. So we started putting in the technical recommendations to rank higher. But then from the, from the PR side, you guys started, getting us into, I would say, some of the smaller publications and then medium publications. We recently got put into business.com and Socialnomics. And so we're starting to get some really higher profile publications. And it's that whole slow and steady growth, because journalists will look, they get pitched, they go, who the heck is Riddle? Do a Google search, find out that we've actually been in other pieces, and they're like, okay, these guys are not just some fly by night. So it's that whole virtuous cycle of you put the time in, get some pieces, that builds traction, you get more attention. So yeah, it's been working out. I just took a look before our podcast, and for Quizmaker, about, a year ago, we were ranked 110th for that search term, which obviously is not going to generate any traffic whatsoever.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as of about 2-3 weeks ago, we were number 4.
Hey, congratulations. That is a big jump. That is
huge jump. And that's, yeah, it's been fantastic. So yeah, so it's kudos to Publicize. I mean, kudos to us as well, but the team has been working really well together.
That's great to hear. And to be honest, it's one of those funny things, which is like, it's kind of sad, but also bizarre, and it makes absolute sense. But if someone searches for you and they can't find you, it's almost one of those things like, do you really exist? It's
Very
kind of
philosophical.
Yeah, I always find it's just so strange. It's mad how like Google can have so much power on your sense of being, in the sense that, like, if you Google someone, and doesn't even necessarily need to be like a company, but even a person, or you hear about someone and you Google it and you just can't find it, then it's like, oh well, they must be a nobody, or they're clearly not anyone of importance. So it's so bizarre how we now these days attribute so much to a simple Google search. So it's great to know that, like, through Google search, people will definitely be able to find you guys now. And
well, we definitely exist now, which is good. Yeah.
Excellent. You got proof on Google.
Yes.
So my last question to you: if you could start over again with Publicize right now, what advice would you tell yourself on your first day?
That's a good question. I would have 2 bits of advice. One, and I think I've mentioned this earlier, but you definitely need to put the time in. So the Publicize team that we work with, Laura and Mike and Emily, and our team, like, that little squad has been brilliant. So, and what's great is because they now know us, they know our business, they know the language you like to use. So that really helps. However, when we started, we might not have been as super fast to respond on, hey, we have a pitch, or here's an article we'd like to, a draft we'd like you to look at. You're only going to get the traction and speed if you put the time in. So that's step 1. Step 2 is I would, again, the team, although they're brilliant, they don't know your industry as well as we do. So it would have been good for us to give them a little clearer directions on what we're looking for in terms of publications. So for us, our core market, our core users are essentially online marketing types, content marketers, that type of stuff, versus the broader business space. So, when it comes to pitching publications, give them a little clearer insights to who we think would be a valuable publication to be posted in.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear that you enjoy your little squad there, and you've got a good team going. And I know Laura's a good account manager, so you're definitely in good hands there. And I completely agree with you on both points. But definitely on the latter, I'm friends with and I work with many of the account managers that publicize. So I understand how their role works. But I always think to myself, it must be so bizarre being a PR manager for so many different companies and just taking on a new company and like just having to learn like what they do, how they work, and just having to like understand that company inside out. So I have a great deal of admiration for all the account managers that really do invest so much time to try and understand and figure out their companies. But at the same time, like you said, it involves a lot of engagement from the client because no one understands the company exactly like the client themselves. So it's definitely that give and take between the two that really makes that perfect recipe of good PR knowledge and a good PR strategy. So yeah, I fully stand by your advice. It's solid advice, I'd say.
Well, and there's the other thing too, and I love when you talk to a good PR person. So like Laura knows her stuff up and down. And it's funny where like, this is our baby. So we go, we have our catch ups and we're like, hey, Laura, we're doing this, this, and this. And this feature is going to be awesome. And it is. But is it PR worthy? And so she's that nice filter of, just because you added, a little extra widget or toggle, maybe that's not so much a PR thing, but hey, wow, you're doing this, which is going to offer completely different advantages, whatever. So she can filter and kind of like put a sanity check on what will work and what won't. So again, that's that resource and time. She can use our time most effectively.
Yeah, that objective input is really important, I suppose, especially when you're focusing on something for so long and you're so absorbed into something. It can be hard to take a step back and see with fresh eyes. So I can imagine jumping on a call with her to have that for sure, that outside perspective. I can understand that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Mike, those are all my questions for today, but thank you so much for joining me. If people want to find Riddle and what you're up to, obviously it doesn't sound like it's too hard with a Google search, but if people do want to, without having to Google it, how can they find you? Are you on like social media, your website you can direct them to?
We're on social media, and thanks to one of our early investors, he let us use riddle.com as a URL. So we have an awesome URL, very easy to find. So riddle.com.
That is, perfect URL. Excellent. Fantastic. Mike, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Sam. It was a lot of fun.